Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be together here on this training webinar for the Promotion of Justice Challenge. And we're really honored to welcome Megan Buchter. She is the director of the Fowler Center for Business as an Agent of World Benefit at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. And she is the director of the Aim2Flourish program. And as you know, in our Promotion of Justice Challenge, we have the first step of the challenge being to prepare and submit an Aim2Flourish story on a business practice and innovation which advances justice, and specifically one of the Sustainable Development Goals related to justice. Megan, of course, is an expert in the work of Aim2Flourish, and we're really honored to have her with us. She's going to share about what Aim2Flourish is, what its processes are, and what its tools are, with a focus also on the Aim2Flourish checklist, which is a very helpful tool, and also on the method of appreciative inquiry, which is the method of qualitative research that's used in identifying the story and telling the story. So it's really great to have all of you here. We will also be posting this recording for your teammates, but really want to welcome Megan and thank her so much for being with us this afternoon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. I'm happy to be here and happy to be meeting with all of your students and the students that are participating in this challenge. This is very exciting for us.
So thank you so much. So maybe Megan, if you could give us an overview really of what Aim2Flourish is and the nuts and bolts of identifying a story, finding a company, how to understand the criteria of Aim2Flourish, just kind of an overview and maybe the nuts and bolts of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just have to promise to cut me off if I start to get too in the weeds with things.
Okay, sounds good.
So Aim2Flourish is a program that was developed at the Fowler Center for Business as an Agent of World Benefit. We're at Case Western Reserve University. And its purpose is to teach students around the world about the UN Sustainable Development Goals and businesses, the opportunity that business has to help contribute to and achieve these goals. And this is a very global program, so it's very exciting to be having you all participate in it. We operate in we have stories that are published from universities at more than 30 countries around the world. More than 140 universities have participated, and more than 100 professors frequently use Aim2Flourish. In 2020 alone, we had 60 professors offer Aim2Flourish in the spring, summer, and fall semesters. And with COVID-19, last year was even a little bit of a slower year for us. So you are part of a global program now, contributing stories just like students from all over the world. The way that Aim2Flourish works is that an educator, whether in their class or as a challenge like this or as some sort of extracurricular activity, offers the Aim2Flourish program to their students. And as part of the program, you are going to search out for a business that is doing good things in the world while also being profitable. And so I think in your case, you're focusing on some very specific global goals. Jeff, global goal 5, 10, and is it 11 or 16?
11.
11.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll be focusing on global goals, gender equality, reducing inequalities, and sustainable cities and communities while doing this program. So you're going to look for businesses that are in one way or another meeting one of those global goals. And then you're going to conduct an interview of somebody at that company. And then you're going to write up a story, and we have a bit of a workflow, but the story will hopefully get published on the Aim2Flourish website. And then we'll be able to include your story with the more than 3,100 stories that we have published so far on our website to date from all over the world. And then we're looking forward to seeing the end result of your challenge as well. So Jeff, should I share my screen and kind of show the students the website?
Yeah, that would be great. And let me just say parenthetically, and maybe you want to speak to this,
Yeah.
By entering stories into Aim to Flourish, each of these teams will also be entered into the Flourish Prize competition, which is an annual competition that Aim to Flourish conducts.
Yes, great point. So we do an annual prizing process called the Flourish Prizes. We look at all of the stories published during a calendar year, and then we begin the prizing process in January of the next year. And we have a jury, we have a process where these stories get narrowed down, and we end up with 17 winners every year, one for each of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And we celebrate the student authors, the professor, the university, and the business that contributed to this story that is winning this Flourish Prize. So by participating in Aim to Flourish, aside from this promotion of justice competition that you're in, you are also going to be, automatically entered into winning a potential Flourish Prize in the spring of 2022.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we're going through that process right now for all of the stories published in 2020. So that's something to kind of stay tuned to and see who the winners are for, for our 2021 Flourish Prizes.
And the Flourish Prizes also are a place where students can look up the winning stories specifically for the 3 sustainable development goals that we're targeting in this competition.
Absolutely. I can show you where to do that when I show you the website.
That'd be great.
Good idea. Good suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is our Aim to Flourish website. Aim2Flourish.com. And I'm just going to walk you through where some of the resources are, and then please, let me know if you have questions, or Jeff, if you feel like I missed anything, please
Sure.
just let me know. I will kick it off here under resources. So we have an entire page dedicated to student resources. This page is really designed to walk you through doing this assignment. So, from the beginning where you're looking for story ideas, we give the requirements for the stories that get published on Aim to Flourish. We give suggestions of possible places to find stories. I always like to point out that, this list is not all inclusive. If you already have an organization in mind, somebody at an organization, by all means, just because it's not, on one of these websites doesn't mean that you can't go and find a company on your own. These are just suggestions, places to look if you need a little extra help finding that company that you want to interview. The requirements to have your story published on Aim to Flourish. So the main one is that the company that you're writing about is a for-profit company. Also that the innovation meets one or more of the UN SDGs. That's part of your challenge. So I don't see that being a problem for this group of students. The innovation should demonstrate a positive impact. So that means that it's not just about doing less harm, but actually about having a net positive impact. The innovation should be embedded in the company and shouldn't just be philanthropy. And then the innovation could be scalable and replicable. It could still be fairly small right now, but the idea is that it should be able to either grow in the future, or somebody else should be able to do something similar in another area. So moving on down this page, preparing for your interview. This is kind of our next chunk of resources here. So, and really, the meat of the resources that you might use on this page. We have some options for reaching out to businesses, some templates for reaching out to the companies as you start to find somebody that you're interested in interviewing, and then you're reaching out. I do highly recommend that, maybe you take this email template or you look at it, but then you put things in your own words. The business leaders and the entrepreneurs that you're going to be reaching out to, they want to hear from you. They don't want to hear, from the email template that I wrote. So my big suggestion is that you add a little bit about yourself in there, add your own personality to that email. When you're getting ready to do the interview, we have the Aim to Flourish business interview guide. And so the interview that we have prepared here for you to do as part of Aim to Flourish is an appreciative inquiry style interview. which means that you're asking strength-based questions. Appreciative inquiry is a methodology for change that's focused on strengths. And so we've incorporated it into our Aim to Flourish program through our interview guide. And so you're automatically doing an appreciative inquiry style interview when you use our interview guide and you're asking the business leader or the entrepreneur about, a high point story, about their inspiration, about what's going really well for them in their company. The interview guide is fairly condensed. If you would like to kind of work on it on your own, build it out, add a few more questions, I recommend using this article here, The Essentials of Appreciative Inquiry, a roadmap for creating positive futures. This article gives a lot of recommendations for other questions that you might ask while doing an appreciative inquiry interview. So that's a resource that you can use if you're looking to build out that interview guide a little bit more. We do also have a short 7-minute video called How to Do an Appreciative Inquiry Interview. So I think this video is a little bit more of an introduction to appreciative inquiry and then gets into the interview just a teeny tiny bit at the end, but also really useful if you just need that refresher when you're going to do your interview. And then we have just moving on down to writing and publishing your story. So we have the Aim to Flourish story submission checklist. And so this document here is basically a either PDF or Word version of what you're going to fill out when you put your story onto the website. And so I find this really useful for just making sure that you have all of the information. I think it's really useful to actually use and look at before you do your interview or during your interview, because this is all of the information that you're going to need from the business leader, from that entrepreneur, just kind of in a document format. So that's that checklist there is really useful. There's also a video posted here where I, kind of like we're doing right now, walk you through the website and give you more details and insight into all the different things that you might find on our website. And then some of our resources have also been translated into Spanish and Portuguese. So if those are your native languages and you're looking for a better introduction, you can use the resources that we have in Spanish or Portuguese as well.
Can we just talk a little bit about what you have there related to finding a story and your experience about that too, Megan?
Sure. So, like I said, we give a lot of websites here of places where you might go to find a story. One of the ones that I recommend the most to students that reach out to me is to look up B Corps, because they have a really nice feature on their website where you can search for B Corps by location. So you might be able to search for and find some that are in your area, or, many of you might not be on the LMU campus. So depending on, wherever you are, there are probably B Corps wherever you live. And you might not even know that they're B Corps. So I do often recommend the B Corp website as a place to start to think about companies. I also think that it's also a good suggestion to just think about companies that you might know, that your friends might know, that your family might know. If you have any personal connections, that might be a good resource to help get you in touch with someone. I know that it can be a little stressful to think about reaching, like just cold calling or reaching out to an organization. A good place, a good way to start is to think about maybe several organizations that you're interested in that would meet the requirements for the project, and then kind of start going down that list. If you reach out and you don't hear, try the next one. That way you're not just sitting around waiting to get a hold of one company. You have some ideas of some other companies that you might talk to, that you'd like to interview with. You have some backup plans. Any other tips that you have, maybe, Jeff, to go along with that?
Yeah, I think that family and friend networks is a really good idea. Also, hit up your professors who might have ideas, as well about potential companies. One of the things that Megan said is the company doesn't have to be really big and the innovation doesn't have to be really big. It just needs to be really impactful to the SDGs that we're talking about, and it has to be able to scale. In other words, another company could do what they did, or they could grow that program within their company. So you're not trying to get a hold of, Microsoft and their diversity initiatives. You are probably looking for smaller companies that would be part of your network. Now, just a quick story. Last semester, I had a number of student teams do Aim2Flourish. One student team ended up speaking to the chief sustainability officer for Citi, the financial corporation, because that was part of their family network. Another team went to the B Corp list and started sending out invitations and ended up speaking to a small coffee company, kind of like a small neighborhood Starbucks in Eastern Michigan. And they were direct importing coffee beans from a relationship with a grower in Honduras. And so they specifically went off of the B Corp list, and it was a small company. So part of the really kind of fun and interesting dimension of this part of the work is really trying to figure out how you're going to talk to. And so I just want to tell both those stories because they represent kind of opposite extremes of opportunities.
Jeff, I'm smiling right now because I actually saw both of those stories today as we're like narrowing down our list to get our Flourish Prize finalists together. So I actually looked at both of those stories today.
Cool, thank you.
Like, oh, there's Jeff. I'm going to be talking to him later.
Yeah, there you go.
Another great thing to do, which takes us back to a recommendation that your professor had a little bit ago, is you can go and look at our past Flourish Prize winners. So this year, 2021, this is the 5th year that we're doing this. We obviously don't have winners yet, but you can go back to 2020 all the way back to 2017 and look at our list of Flourish Prize honorees on our website. And so, each year the honorees are different. They can be very different, even though they're meeting that same sustainable development goal. So this might be a good way to go and, read these stories around the goals that you're specifically focusing on, just to see the variety of stories that have won prizes in the past, and also to just see the variety of ways that organizations are meeting a specific sustainable development goal. You can do the same thing by also going to innovations and going to browse stories. So this is where all of our stories are published. So you can see 3,182 stories as of right now, published right now. All of the global goals are kind of shown up here at the top of each story, but using the advanced search option, you could search by global goals. So I can go ahead and look at all of the global goals related to, or all of the stories related to global goal 5, gender equality. And then just start going through those and seeing, what stories have been published before, what types of companies have been published about. For the sake of the challenge, you're going to want to get creative and think of your own, your company that you're interested in, not just something that's already been profiled on the Aim2Flourish site. But it is nice to go and see what other students have written about and what kind of organizations there are out there that are meeting, global goal 5 or global goal 10 or global goal 11.
Let's pause quickly. Any questions? Megan, this is really great. Any questions or observations, Dr. DeMillo, students, anything you want to ask about or highlight?
Taylor?
Yes, so if one of the companies that we might reach out to meets more of the SD, one or more of the SDGs, like 2, or should we just focus on one specific one that we're trying to highlight?
You broke up a little bit there in the middle, so I'm not sure I got the entire question.
Basically, if our company meets more than one of the SDGs, should we highlight just one specific one or multiple?
So I think, that's a little bit of a question for the challenge, but for the purposes of Aim to Flourish, it's pretty rare actually that you're writing about a company that only actually meets one global goal. The global goals are very interconnected. And so, we see a lot of, I pulled up this story as an example, we see most of our stories have multiple global goals associated with them. So, this one has to do with women that are, this one's from Indonesia, that are doing traditional weaving and creating products for people to purchase. So, not only are these women being brought out of poverty, which is no poverty, it's also specifically providing jobs and opportunities for women. So global goal number 5, global goal number 8 is decent work and economic growth. So here we're providing economic growth in Indonesia. And then global goal number 12 is responsible consumption and production. And so as a consumer, if I'm purchasing things from a company like this, I'm helping this company to meet global goal number 12. So you can see how just, one organization that's founded around the idea of how supporting women with jobs can meet a variety of different global goals.
Yeah, I would just affirm that, and so in part of the process of appreciative inquiry is really being in dialogue with the company to help them tell the story about the kind of impact that they're having. So I'm trying to remember the specific company that I was having a discussion about recently, but they were sharing that they had this initiative, and what was surprising for them was the way in which it really created opportunity for women specifically. So they didn't design this specific program to advance opportunities for women business leaders, but that was a benefit or result of this. And so you could imagine a scenario where you're really talking to them about their business development plan, but you're really honoring them through appreciative inquiry for this impact toward SDG number 5, gender equality. So, again, to your question, Taylor, it's typically more than one, and you might find yourself moving into one of the ones that we're targeting through another pathway. But what you're doing in the storytelling is highlighting how this business practice impacts one of the 3 SDGs that we've identified.
Thank you.
Any other questions around this process so far? Let me share 2 other things, and then Megan, if this, anything that this, you would reflect on related to this. Aim to Flourish does not have a requirement that the story that you're publishing needs to be a company that's never been published before, right? So,
Correct.
So that's okay for us too. Again, you're telling the story of a specific business practice that advances justice. So your specific dimension of the story that you're telling might be a slightly different emphasis than what's already posted. So I would just say that if when you're browsing stories and seeing these stories, if you look and go, oh darn, I was thinking of talking to them, but I can't because that company's already there, that's not an impediment. And the second thing is, the one requirement that you have to be clear about with the companies that you're interviewing, they have to agree to be published. Because not only does that, they don't appear on the Aim to Flourish website if they don't agree to be published, but remember, this is step 1 in a 2-step process where you're going to produce in a visual media, the story of what they're doing. So they have to agree to the publication of this story. And that's one of the things that you want to have as kind of a pre-qualifying conversation right out of the gate. Because some companies, they'll say, yeah, we don't want to be published, okay. Also, sometimes with big corporations, especially if you're interviewing someone that doesn't have reach within the corporation, they'll kind of go, I need to get legal sign off on this, and this has got to go up 6 layers of approvals. And yeah, there's no way I can get approval for that. So they just can't. And that is a non-negotiable as it relates to this competition.
Yeah, just to add to that, for our prize, for our challenge, it's not about your ability to get the most famous company and profile them. Right? That's not the exercise here. The exercise is your skill set as a team to storytell, right? To use your talents as storytellers, both in written word and through using media production, to tell that story related to the topic. And the topic is advancing social justice, right? Those 3 SDGs. So, this is a great opportunity to shine a light on a company that hasn't yet gotten the limelight for the wonderful work they do. You guys are helping tell those stories and bring attention to these companies. And then second, you're gonna have a checklist, a check-in with us in a week or so. And you'll notice if you looked at that document, we want you to look at several companies at this early stage. We don't want you just to zero in on one company. So have some options, all right? And have your own internal process of why you chose the company that you chose to profile, right? As you looked at, we don't want you to do in-depth interviews with 3 to 5 companies. That's going to take too long, but you have to have some sort of vetting system of why you picked the company that you decided to profile. All right, and it should be a healthy balance between, the wonderful work they do and the novelty of their innovation. But also keep in mind that you do want to get access. You do want to get their permission, and you want to be able to tell the best story possible. And they're going to have some buy-in on that as well. It can't just be what you see on their website or what it's already been published about them. So it is a bit of there's some moving parts into this challenge, and you're going to have to make some critical decisions. But this is part of the fun of it. And yeah, we're excited to see what you come up with. But I hope that this presentation so far has helped give perspective on the Appreciative Inquiry methodology and some of the tools that Aim2Flourish has provided for this challenge. And this is a good time to raise questions. And if you have anything that you want us to clarify, I think any of the 4 of us can answer questions.
Yep.
Jeff, do you want me to show at all like the process of how you submit a story on the website? Or,
Yeah,
I know we're not there yet, so I'm not sure.
Yeah,
if
that would be
useful,
helpful, just so we have this so that they can go back to this as a resource.
Okay.
And while you're setting that up, let me just say one thing that builds on what Dr. DeMillo said. This Promotion of Justice Challenge, the winner among your teams won't be the story of the kind of the sexiest company with the coolest. We're not judging the companies. We're judging your storytelling, right? The Aim2Flourish, when it meets the criteria, will be an appropriate story to tell. But the challenge really then is how well is that story developed and told, and that will be an upcoming webinar that we're going to have. But we're not. You don't have to choose the company that, oh, my company can beat that company because this is cooler than that company. We're not evaluating companies. We're not judging them against one another. It's really your storytelling. That's the piece that we're emphasizing.
And when you do decide on the company that you want to profile, and as you're meeting with them, you can let them know too that they're all kind of the winners in this. Like there's no competition between the companies. They're all going to be acknowledged for setting the standard and for being profiled by our LMU community. So there's no competition between the companies. The competition is your storytelling ability.
That's right.
That helps.
Thank you. Yeah, if you could, Megan, just go through the how to submit a story.
So I'm going to start back here at the homepage just so that everybody knows where they need to go. So the first thing that I want to point out is just that everything on our website is completely open for you to view and use and download and look at without having to log in to anything until you're ready to go and actually start your story on the website. And at that point, you will have to sign up on the website. It's a very simple sign up process. It's like asking for your name and email and create a password and which school are you from. But you will have to sign up at that point. And in order to have all of your teammates listed as authors on your story, you're each going to want to create your own Aim2Flourish profile so that you can all be added as authors to the story. So I'm just going to log in here because you have to be logged in order to get to this one part of the website, which is where you go to create your story. And so you're going to go to the innovations menu here and then down to create a story. That's just asking you if you're somebody that's participating in Aim2Flourish. And this is what it looks like. So when you create your story, it's broken up into these 5 different pages just for ease of of looking at, of viewing. Like I mentioned, as long as all of your authors have created profiles, then you'll be able to just like start typing their names in here. And you'll be able, their name will pop up. You'll be able to select them and say, okay, these are the other authors on my team. You'll also be able to select your school here. LMU is already listed here. So you're just going to search for that. There it is. And then you'll be able to add the professor. I'm guessing they're adding.
Put my name.
Just
put my name and then Dr. DeMillo and I and a panel will be looking at your submissions, but yeah.
And then you'll put in a story title. This can always be changed later. So I see plenty of students that don't know what their story title is to begin with. And so it ends up being something, test story or, group 5. But once you figure out what you want to call your story later, you'll be able to go back and change that if you want to. And then you'll save and continue and you'll go on to the next step. And so this is where you'll input the business information, business name, business type. You have the option of choosing from a drop-down menu, same with business industry, city, state, country, the business website, the social media information here. This is optional to include, but just recommended so that if we are highlighting the company later on social media, or if you and the company do win a Flourish Prize, that we can find them easier, but that information is optional. Your founded number of employees, business overview, the person interviewed and their information, and then you'll be able to save and continue. It won't let me move on without putting this in, but I can show you, I can get out of here and show you what a full story looks like if you give me just a second. So you'll see that, once you go through all of those 5 phases, there'll be a button that allows you to submit the story to your professor. And then you'll see the whole story kind of laid out here in one page instead of broken up in those 5. But once you go through the business information that we just talked about, and the person interviewed, this is your business innovation story. All of the information that you put here is back in that checklist document that I showed you that was on the student resources page. As you read other stories that are published on the Aim2Flourish site, you'll see what type of information goes in each of these boxes, but these are the story boxes that you'll put your story into when you're ready. It does let you link to things, so you can include links if you want to. Where is the innovation used? The global goals that your story applies to, we let you select up to 5. Obviously, at least one of those 5 should be one of the goals that you're highlighting for this challenge. And then there are a few other questions that we ask you here that are mostly just for data collection purposes about the potential impact of the innovation, your experience doing the Aim2Flourish assignment, the survey asking you, how much you knew about the global goals before and after. And then this is that publishing rights section. So this is where we ask you if it's okay to publish the story, yes or no. So this is where you need to make sure that you've communicated with the company and that they're okay with having their story published so that you can check yes here as part of this challenge. And then finally, there are media uploads. So we do require that there's a story image submitted with the story and a business logo. Having a cover image, which is, kind of like on social media, one of those strong vertical images, that's optional. And then having a photo of the interview, also optional, but if you have one, that's great as well. I always think that, especially for these images, for the story image, and if you want to include a cover image, it's always really nice to ask the company if they'll send you something that you can include with your story, instead of you trying to figure it out after the fact, what kind of photo you want to use. And then we do allow you to submit video links. I know that you're going to be doing media later, but if you recorded your interview and you wanted to submit that with your Aim2Flourish story and you put it on YouTube or Vimeo, you can include that link here on this page with your story.
Megan, for that, after they create the video portion of this in the summer, could they put that back into their submission?
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful. You'll have to reach out to me and I'll probably have to add it or let the students add it themselves, but that would be really great.
It won't be the actual interview though. It'll be like a different type of
That's
video.
okay. Yeah, we would still love to be able to include it. There are actually two different places on this page where you can include, so there are two different places on this page where you can include video links. So one is the interview video, and then the one that I showed you with the media uploads is just kind of an additional link. So if there's some sort of other video that was taken or that the company has created that they want to share, that can be shared as well.
Okay, great.
So yeah, we would love to be able to put the videos that your students create with their story. And that's the whole story page.
Okay, wonderful. One thing that is kind of assumed in what Megan is sharing, but let me just state the obvious. You have to interview the company, and it needs to be an in-person interview, meaning you either meet with the person, again, we're COVID, we understand, but you're meeting or you're Zooming or you're on the phone, but you have to talk to the company. An email exchange or WhatsApp or whatever kind of written method for communicating because of time zone issues and all that, that disqualifies, because it needs to be an interview, because part of the methodology is the use of appreciative inquiry, which is by definition conversational. So just remember that when you're planning who you're going to talk to and how you're going to talk to them.
Yeah, so every story that's published on Aim2Flourish is based on an interview. If a student hasn't done an interview, maybe they met some sort of requirement for their class, but we don't publish the story also. And so for this challenge, it is a requirement that you do the interview. And we have always encouraged students that they can use Zoom or Skype or something like that if needed. And so obviously during COVID-19, that's a great way to get an interview done. Not quite as fun as sitting down in person and getting to, sample chocolate or whatever it is, but doing the interview virtually, but still being able to have that conversation is still really important.
Okay. Any other questions? So there's three kind of buckets that I'd encourage you to think about. So the first is just the business practice that advances justice and the SDG. That's one piece. The second is the use of appreciative inquiry. As Megan said, it's a strength-based interview. So you're really essentially inviting the business to brag on themselves. Business people love bragging about themselves. So it's kind of an easy ask. And part of how Aim2Flourish was designed was to say there needs to be a platform that enables great stories to be told and to be invited to be told. So that's why the Appreciative Inquiry Method is so important to this. And then the third one is the nuts and bolts of how do you write a story, upload a story, submit a story. Nothing goes on the Aim2Flourish platform as published before it goes through a couple of steps. And Megan, help me if I got this wrong, but first it goes to the professor that you designated for review. And that's the stage where Dr. DeMillo and I and others will look at the story as part of the preliminary round for the Promotion of Justice Challenge. It also gives us an opportunity to give feedback and say, check sentence number 3 in box 2, because there's a typo, things like that. So it gives us an opportunity. Then what we'll do as part of the challenge, which is part of the Aim2Flourish process, is then we will forward it for editorial review, which is when it goes to the Aim2Flourish team. And they will review it and then authorize it for publication. And that's when it becomes entered into the Flourish Prize competition. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay, and could you just share quickly who the reviewers are at Aim2Flourish?
Yeah, so once a story is past your professor's review, and I guess one thing that I didn't show, but instead of pulling up my screen, I'll just mention it. There is a commenting feature on your story. So if one of the reviewers is requesting that you do fix something in your story, they can write comments to you, and then they'll send the story back to you. So keep an eye on your email and on your dashboard on Aim2Flourish. For making sure that you're not being requested to make additions to your story. But once the story is past your professor, it will come over to Aim2Flourish. It does go through 2 rounds of edits with us. So it goes through what's we call editorial review, where we actually have a team of volunteer story editors that read the story, and our story editors range from retired faculty to journalists to our people on our advisory board. So it's a very wide variety of people that help us read the stories and look at them. And then it'll go to final review, where somebody from the Aim2Flourish team will actually look at your story and just do that final check to make sure that everything is okay with it for it to be published on the website.
Thank you.
And then if you need any writing support before you turn in, I just put a link in the chat for LMU's Writing Center. They've got a peer-to-peer network to help you out if there's grammar issues, or if you want to have another set of eyes that look at it before we look at it.
Thanks, Ryan. Yes. So yes, Taylor?
Hi, so besides the requirements of the story and what you just kind of explained, what would you say your team loves the most when they're reading these stories and looks for the most?
So that's I guess an interesting question, because I mean, what we're looking for is just that the story meets those basic requirements. So it's not that we are some sort of like gatekeeper that only tries to publish, the best of the best of the best stories. We want to publish every story that comes through Aim2Flourish. So long as it's, about a for-profit company, it's showing that it's meeting one or more of those sustainable development goals, and meeting those other requirements that I showed you on that student resources page, and that an interview has been conducted. So those are kind of the basic things that we check. I think as story editors and as our reviewers read the stories, wow, I mean, there are so many good stories out there about, big companies, small companies, just things that, companies are doing, or social entrepreneurs that have, created a whole new process for something. It's really hard to say like what really wows us. I think that there are so many amazing business innovations out there that you know, you just don't hear about on a regular basis because we're very too caught up with, and our media is too caught up with like talking about negative things that are happening. And so it is really nice to read Aim2Flourish stories and to say, wow, look at what this company is doing. I've never heard of that before.
Thank you, Taylor. Any other questions? Dr. DeMello, a couple of words to wrap up.
No, I just want to thank Megan for organizing this amazing program. We're really honored to be a part of it at LMU, and we're excited for this Promotion of Justice Challenge tying into it and helping get more stories out to our students who showed up today. Thank you for taking time on a Friday. Please pass the word on to your group members, and you know, we've got we'll post the video as soon as we get it. We have a check-in coming up on April 2nd, so make sure your team is working and filling out that form, because we do want to see your progress and where all the teams are as we get into the next month. But we have one more big session like this later in April. We'll be hearing from the head of creative at GiveWith, who's going to be talking to you about preparing creative briefs, storytelling, to help you prep for the possibility that you become one of the finalists and you go into the summer of working with their team, and you know, some of the video tools that you'll be using. But for now, you know, it's a matter of vetting companies, finding, seeing what your options are, and seeing what story you want to tell, and then getting access, you know, going through the process to, just like a business journalist would go through, right, to get in the door, and you're pitching, in some ways you're pitching to them the Promotion of Justice Challenge and Aim2Flourish. So being here today was really valuable, because now you know what this program is all about. You've got much more knowledge about Aim2Flourish and the potential of this story, you know, being shared with many people around the world.
And I just add, thank you, Megan, so very much. The benefit to the businesses that you're interviewing is that their good practices will be profiled on Aim2Flourish and entered into the Promotion of Justice Challenge at LMU. So there's a lot of benefit to the business for that, and you want to be really clear and upfront about sharing that. That's the intention of this and the aim of this. And I just finally say, you will notice that 2 of your student colleague teams from a couple of years ago won one of the Flourish prizes. So from LMU, and when you go to 2020, the first stories under SDG 1 are LMU stories. So this is a great way for LMU students to really profile human flourishing, and the contribution of business to that. So thank you very much. So Megan, thank you. It's Friday afternoon. Thank you so much. Dr. DeMello, thank you. Sheree, for pulling all this together. Oh, one final thing, I apologize. Access to our office hours and setting up appointments with Dr. DeMello or me so that we can help you in any way that you'd like us to help you are also posted on the Promotion of Justice website. Okay. Thanks so much, you guys.